her case. After he says, look, just take the staff, lay it on his head. So 30 says, and the mother of the child said, as Jehovah lives and as thy soul lives, I'm not leaving you. And he arose and followed her. And Gehazi passed on before them, and laid the staff upon the head of the child, but there was no voice nor hearing. Okay, so the servant of the prophet laid the staff, and it didn't work. But we notice about 4 times recorded that the moment Elisha the prophet became involved, that things began to manifest and take hold inside of this boy's life. Why? Because he was laid in the same chamber where God conceived the thought process of the son. A lot of the times, people that receive the word from the prophet need a jump start back from the chamber where the miracle occurred at.
Wow.
A lot of times we'll see things self-same in our lives going on. Like, you know what? I'm going to go back to the origination point. The origination point. It has to speak. I don't care what's going on in the origination point's life right now. I'm coming into town and we finna talk. Why? Because the anointing that started the thing is going to be the anointing that gives it life and resurrects it and also repropels the situation. We cannot get the right anointing off of something that has not been in the proper chamber to give the apostolic thrust or the prophetic thrust behind the call, behind the child, behind the marriage, behind the finances. We just can't do it. We've got to go back to the origination point.
Jesus.
So we say, okay, the person that launched me out to ministry, I promise you I ain't left them alone. Why? Because that I know that the prophet's reward and the anointing flows from the person that said, I see God in you. Let me train you and send you out and send you with the anointing. So no matter what I get in life, I always find myself saying, Apostle Darren, what's up? I always find myself going back to the origination point. And no matter how many people oppose me going back to the origination point, I know the origination point has the apostolic thrust to send it forward. It's something about the prophet speaking that gives your soul a birth and a life. Jesus. But a lot of times we sit under something that cannot give us life, cannot reestablish our soul, and cannot thrust us forward. So when stuff starts hitting, I had to sit down and analyze this. No pun intended. You know, I've had my share of church situations with people. And I'm not talking about this church. I'm talking about people that covered this church. And I'm not even talking about it. I'm going to say, when things erupted in my life that was out of control, they did not have the anointing to bring restoration to it. But who did? The origination point. When I had to sit in front of the origination point and say, sir, just pray. I ain't got words today. Just, would you pray? The origination point, him and his wife came together, laid hands on my shoulders, and they just prayed. Or when I could sit down and gain wisdom, my mind literally in this verse goes back to when I was launched out in the prophetic. You know, I was always prophetic as a child. Had the premonitions. Didn't quite understand what it meant. Had the dreams. Did not understand what it meant. Matter of fact, I mistook them for nightmares. Wake up like, what was that? Ah! You know, screaming out in the middle of the night, all that. And God was speaking as sins. But it came out as a nightmare. But when I began to sit at the woman of God's foot and began to get the word and get the revelation, it's one thing that you preach to, but it's another one you can sit down and get the discipleship and get the revelation behind the word. What did it mean, not only from that time, but to this time? Did the word change from that time to this time, or does it remain the same? Exactly how am I supposed to study this thing? Woman of God, speak. And so when she began to propel me, she propelled me first through prayer. She said, look, I'm not giving you no access to nothing unless you start in prophetic inside of intercessory prayer first. She had a class of 10 women. And I promise you, out of the 10, there was only 2 that were doing all the assignments. Me and some other girl. But I want to know, what is this on my life? I got to become kindred with this. So when a woman of God began to speak, it began to bring life to the situation that I didn't quite understand. So every now and again I have to saddle up and go back like, what you think about this? I read her post for Father's Day, and it just so hurt because she said, Happy Father's Day. Single mothers, you are not a father because you are not a male. Please don't honor yourself in that way. Fathers have a place in their child's life, whether or not they are active in their lives, they still have a role in their lives. They still are the creator and the originator. I said, when I read that stat, I said, I love, and then I put indeed. Why? Because it was so her. Even the way she went about teaching it and saying it in her status, I said, that is so Prophetess Tanya. Let's continue to examine. Now, through these several encounters with this boy, he laid the staff on the child's face, which, if you don't know who or what this staff is, as we're talking about prophetic originations, and everyone needs a prophetic originator. If you're a prophet, you need a prophetic originator. You cannot just jump on the scene. I don't care who you are. And Jesus even had a time of training as a youth. He didn't just jump on the scene. I don't know where these folks like, I'm a prophet. You just jump on the scene. No training, no origination point, and then want to come into church and I just want to help. No, you sit down and you get trained. Why? Because prophets are for the house of God. You're not supposed to just flounce around untrained. I just, wherever the church is, that's why I am. No, you sit down and you join somebody's house. You don't just, I'm going to go to Tukey Shine Church and I'm going to Grandma Sunshine Quiet Church. And you can't do that, because if you gather too many anointings, you will implode the original pure anointing that's supposed to be birthed out of you. But you running around trying to help. You can't do that. Why? Because you don't have an origination point. Therefore, you look like a seed that has been planted, but you burned up on the ground, just like what Jesus said. Seed is supposed to go down in the ground, but some get scorched up. That's that trait of prophet. You see him. Hey, woman of God, how you doing? You get, and this be me. I promise you, this is me. Well, let me get your phone number. What church do you go to? Child, wherever the church is, that's why I am. I start putting my phone away. We ain't got nothing to talk about. Why? Because you don't have an origination point. I will not have you releasing crack over my people. You must have an origination point. You must have a house that you are joined to. Why? Because that's where you're going to get your anointing and your stimulation. Prophets need houses. You're not a prophet if you don't have a house. Elisha had a house. It was in the self-same church that we serve today, but he served Elijah. And Elijah had a company of the prophets that he trained. But when he passed away, Elisha was so, I don't even know what to call it, if it was wise or conniving. I'm going with you, dog. Where we going? I'm going up. The chariot is coming. And I'm heading on the way. He had Elijah's staff. He still carried around his origination point. He didn't just say, well, Elijah's gone. Elisha is on the scene. Gehazi, let's go. We're going to go tear up the town. No, he had a house and he carried the origination point. Even after the origination point, it went on to glory. What did he do? He stood there. He was smart enough to say, some of the other prophets like, man, I'm tired. And then you read that some came close, but they didn't follow all the way out. Elijah had the mindset to follow him all the way out. And so when he threw the staff and he threw the mantle, this stuff came down on this man and it hit him because he was there all the way to the end of time. This dude gets swept up in the chariot. He throws that mantle down and he's able to catch this thing. Now, Elijah was a little bit crazy. The difference between Elijah, Elijah